Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Marsano, and this is Probate Matters, sponsored by Advanced My Inheritance. So today we're going to talk about trust. Well, more specifically, how to get a loan or an advance against a trust. So why would an administrator or a fiduciary or an attorney want to get a trust advance or a loan?
We have been helping trusts for nearly a decade get advances.
Well, a lot of times what happens is that these estates, they have multiple properties in them. From sort of an outside looking in, it would look like these trusts are certainly wealthy and have lots of means. But unfortunately, the reality is that they're illiquid. A lot of times that they are, rich with property or rich with other assets that are just unfortunately illiquid. And so, sometimes the administrator or the executor or the attorney or the trustees managing these trusts, they just need some relief, or they need another solution to help the many issues that come up while managing a trust. And, even an heir that's a part of a trust, sometimes they need relief, whether it's because of medical bills or whether it's because of educational reasons or the myriad of things that come up in life. As examples, so over the last decade, what I can tell you is this. I've seen so many reasons why trust, and they have come to us to get, on my side, an advance. And we're going to talk about what the difference is between an advance and a loan as it relates to a trust. But I wanted to first, before we get into that, talk about specific reasons why people have come to our company, Advance My Inheritance, why they've come to us for advances to help them out. So one sort of solution that we came up with about 6 months ago was we had a client that came to us and it was an attorney. And the attorney had a trust that had a situation where there was a property, pretty large property, value close to $1 million. And unfortunately though, it had a balloon note, and the balloon note was coming due. And so with no cash really to speak of inside, or certainly not enough liquid funds to speak of to get that note taken care of, they would have actually lost the property to foreclosure. So rather than lose the property to foreclosure, which would have been close to an $800,000 equity sort of holding, now the trustees and the attorney got together. They sought out a solution, which they got in advance. They actually did take a look at getting a loan, but were unsuccessful. And we were able to work with them, get them in advance, pay off the balloon note, and literally give them relief. And that's just one of so many different situations that we've had over, like I said, the last decade.
We have helped many trustees and attorneys pay off balloon notes and mortgages inside their trust.
Another one that I can think of, maybe a little bit further back, was a situation where the trust kind of came in force. The heir winded up inheriting a property that had tenants in it.
Evicting a tenant is a long process.
Well, unfortunately, they wanted to be able to sell the property. The trustee, the attorney, and the beneficiary were all looking forward to selling the property. Unfortunately, the tenant didn't feel the same. And the tenant couldn't buy out, couldn't get a mortgage and buy out that property from the trust, and just decided to drive everybody crazy. And so the tenant winded up staying in there, and it literally had to be an eviction process. And I can tell you that if you've ever had to go through an eviction process, it's not easy. It takes lots of time, it takes lots of money, it takes lots of patience. And quite frankly, it can make somebody's hair go gray. And if they don't have the time and they don't have the money to make this happen, it's going to be a really bad situation. So this tenant, certainly wasn't great to the house, didn't take care of it, actually kind of destroyed a few things in the house because they were angry that, they were trying to get pushed out or they were trying to remove them. Eventually the process did take over, and, the clients winded up following a very elongated process set up by the state. And they were ultimately successful in getting the tenant out. But they needed actual, an advance to help them, because they needed to hire a lawyer. They needed to pay sort of the filings along the way. And they needed to, be able to also maintain the property, right? Because there's still all these bills, the mortgage and all the things that come with it, the taxes, the homeowner's insurance, all those things still need to be paid. And so they took out an advance in order to, help with the eviction, help with the, monthly bills. And ultimately they were successful and were able to sell the property. So, whether you're sitting in a situation where, you have tenants that, you need to evict, or, you have back, sort of taxes or property liens from back taxes or, back medical bills. An advance, can certainly come into, handy.
Trust advances are a great option. You fund them in typically 3 to 4 days. There's no monthly payments. There's no minimum credit score or credit requirement. There's no upfront fees or hidden surprises and no personal guarantee.
The difference between an advance and a loan. There are tons, but I'm just going to give you the basic ones. One, on a loan, you need a really good credit score. Two, banks don't like to do loans against a trust because there's specific language in trust that don't allow banks sometimes to go ahead and actually put a lien on it. So, banks are very weary of trust. They don't love them. They try and shy away from them if they can. And, banks like personal guarantees. Well, in advance, you don't need a personal guarantee. A bank, you do. A bank takes, 21 to 30 days to get an approval if you can get it. We fund most deals in about 2 days. We know how to work with attorneys. We welcome them. We know how to work with trustees and fiduciaries. This is our business. This is what we do every day. Banks, they don't have a great history of working with anybody except for the direct homeowner or whoever's getting the personal loan with a personal guarantee. There's also no prepayment penalty on an advance. Some loans there are. And then, quite frankly, there's no upfront fees like there are with banks. So, when you're deciding whether or not to go with an advance versus a bank loan, there's some clear distinctions that, give the advantage to an advance. Quicker timing, more efficient, less costly. It allows you to move much faster in what you need to do and ultimately get financed or funded in 2 to 3 days. So, whether you are looking to get an advance because you have back taxes, like I said, or, you have the tenants, or, other situations where, I have a lot of realtor friends that, that come to me that are working with probate cases or trust. And they just want to be able to fix up the property in order to sell it for the most money. In that situation with the tenant that I told you about, well, the tenant, unfortunately, they kind of really roughed up the house. Well, we were able to put money into the, give them an advance. They were able to put that money into the property and able to turn around and sell it. Well, that happens every single day. We give advances to people looking to fix up their real estate, update the kitchen, update the bathrooms, do a little better landscaping, and then ultimately sell it for much more money, which enhances the value of the estate and enhances their inheritance and what they're getting. So, we're also going to talk about a couple of different things here. There's a lot of different trusts. I shouldn't say there's two, but there's two that we're going to focus on. One is a revocable trust, and the other one is an irrevocable trust. So let's talk about those trusts now. Let's start off first with the irrevocable trust. And what is it? Okay, now let's take a look at the revocable trust and see what that is. So what's needed in order to get an advance on your trust? Well, it's really quite simple. The main ingredient or the main thing that we need is cooperation from the trustee and the attorney who are managing the trust. Their cooperation is essential. It's vital in getting any advance done because we need to make sure that one, they understand the terms, two, that they'll acknowledge the assignment, and three, that ultimately will be paid back. So again, my name is John Marceno, and this is Probate Matters. We appreciate you watching today, and please, if you need liquidity inside your trust, for whatever reason, don't hesitate, give us a call. We look forward to speaking to you.
So trust advances are a great option and clearly a great tool when a trust needs liquidity.